Today, we're making Blaand. Welcome to the Four Seasons. I'm your host, Ken Johnson, and today we're doing, I will not say a historical drink, but I will say a fantasy drink made off of historical drinks. So, Viking culture is running rabid here in America. The problem is most Americans don't know much about Vikings, and what they do think they know is false. The idea that Vikings had horns on their helmets and they drank from horns of mead all the time and they pillaged and all that is, a lot of that is false. Some of it is partially true, but almost all of the story is not completely true. The Vikings were kind of a successor generation to the Norse. So the Norse were a group of people that basically colonized and took over Germany and most of the northern parts of Europe. And then they fought with each other. They fought with other groups like the Celts and all those. And so as they were fighting, they started moving, kind of like our Native Americans when the Europeans came. They started being moved off. They started leaving areas. And so the Vikings were a new generation of Norse reborn. By definition, they were a rural agrarian society. They were farmers. If you think of Christmas time, Yule is a farming festival. It is a way to call out your barren, lame, sick, any type of livestock that would not live through a winter and is eating up valuable grain. They would sacrifice those animals to the gods and then have a big meal. These big giant pots of boiling meats, horse, goat, all sorts of animals all thrown together. They were boiled in temples, and they were using huge logs. That is where Yule log comes from. And so, being that most of them were in very cold environments, they were hard pressed. It was rough and tumble life. So the idea that they had access to honey is not really true. Not in its entirety. Because it was becoming increasingly difficult to farm where they were living, most of them started pillaging other people. And so there is a set of islands off of Scotland where a lot of them set up colonies. They were trying to recolonize Europe. They would hit England. They were trying to take back lands that they formerly had occupied. And so then that's when they started being introduced to honey a little bit. And that's where they started drinking some honey wines, because England, Scotland, some of those places, they were producing meads, and even their ales were made from mead, or made from honey. So they were actually what we call a metheglin. Or no, I'm sorry, not metheglin. That's a spiced mead. They were braggots. So it was an ale braggot is what it was. They did not have hops. Beer as we know it today had not been invented. They had something similar to beer, but not what we would think. So what happened was the Vikings, they started moving down what most people do not realize is most of Europe, especially the Mediterranean, had been taken over by the Muslims. And so people in what we now know as Italy, because Italy was not unified at the time, but Italy, Spain, Portugal, places like that, most of those countries were hiring Vikings as mercenaries to help them fight off the Muslims so they could take back their land. And so, especially Italy, they paid very well. And so, being mercenaries became a way of life for many Viking families. And they were exposed to a lot of meads, and that's where the mead myth came in. It really isn't a myth, but it's a partial myth. They had to have access to the honeybees. Before that, they were drinking basically fermented milk called blonde or blonde. So it's spelled B-L-A-A-N-D, but it's pronounced blonde. So blonde. In Iceland, they say blonde or blonde. So anyway, it was just the whey left over from making cheese, and then they would ferment it out. It was maybe 5% alcohol, maybe. It really became popular in Scotland, especially in a set of islands that had been occupied by the Vikings. And so they started making this blonde or blonde, and it was said that it was effervescent, and in fact it was considered to be a healthy drink so long as it was bubbling. When it quit fermenting and quit bubbling and started turning to vinegar, it was said to be no longer any good. So we know that one thing is it has to be a low ABV or alcohol by volume because it's turning to vinegar. And two, we knew that was sparkling, that's what it was after. Most YouTube channels that are making blonde mispronounce it. They say bland or blonde, but it's actually blonde. And some of them, or most of them, don't do any type of effervescence. Only one that I've found has used honey, because most time you're either going to add sugars, whatever, to get the ABV up, because most people won't get the alcohol. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix honey with whey for milk. Now, the thing about it is, there is a thing called Mead Blonde. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, so if you speak old Viking Norse, please understand that I may be mispronouncing, but Mead Blonde. Mead or Mead is honey. And so some people believe it means honey blonde or blonde mead. That is not the case. Actually, the way it was being said was a proper or traditional blonde, which just would be the fermenting out. It wasn't very popular. It didn't last very long, and a lot of historians misunderstand it and think that they was actually making mead to get the ABV up. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever in written history or oral history that the Scots or the Vikings or any other group of people that had access to this culture made a mead from whey. So this is a totally new thing, and you will not find any videos out of where they're making it sparkling. So why am I doing this? Well, first of all, I am doing this for a contest. I don't know why I'm doing it for a contest. I only enter contests when I'm trying to sell something, because people buy once they find out it's award winning. So my books, my artwork, they're all award winning because I enter them in contests and I get vetted and I get those nice little medals and stickers and things, and people buy it. I can't sell my mead by law. So therefore, I guess this is an ego boost. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm doing it. So we're going to take buttermilk. Now most people think that you have to use rennet. That is not the case. So we're going to take buttermilk and heat it up. I have right here a hot plate. I've got a very cheap pot that I no longer cook with. It is too flimsy, too thin. I was about to throw it away, but it's perfect for this. This is the inside of an Instant Pot. And what I'm doing, you can see the steam rolling out. I have got some water in here to gently raise this up. And so I want to get this up to about 165 degrees. So it'll take a little while to bring this up to 165 degrees, 160 degrees. Buttermilk will not need rennet. This is the old way of doing this. And it will slowly form curds. I will strain out the curds, and then after I strain out the curds, I'll take the whey, and then I'll add this orange blossom honey. Now this right here is from Ray Warren's farm down in South Florida. It is orange blossom honey, and it is 2 pounds, 32 ounces. So 2 pounds. And it's distributed by a company out of Chipley. So there's a group called 77 Services LLC, and they basically take a lot of apiaries from around Florida and they get them to markets. And so this is a local market in a different part of Florida from where I'm at, but I'm able to get it here, and it's orange blossom. So once I get there, I'll have a fermenter, I'll add the whey, I'll add this, and then I'll add some Red Star Premier Rouge. There will be no more need for any type of nutrients or anything else, and then we'll ferment it. After it's fermented, we will then take it and put it in a secondary fermentation. The secondary fermentation will be to cause effervescence, what we call bottle conditioning. I really don't know how this is going to turn out. I hope it turns out great because I've got high hopes for this. I've heard that it's a marvelously complex drink when it's done right. So I'm hoping that I can get it right. So let's get started. First thing to do is very simple. We're just going to pour buttermilk into this pot. Unceremoniously, of course. Because I make a mess, and that is not something I'm wanting to do right now. And of course I'm making a mess. So this is about all your buttermilk. I don't drink it. I've never acquired the taste for buttermilk. When I do my biscuits and stuff, I make a faux buttermilk because it's so easy to make fake buttermilk than it is to buy it in store. But in this case, it's cultured. All buttermilk in America is cultured. It's not like it used to be. So I'm just using this because it's the same thing as a gallon of milk roughly. So it made no sense for me not to use a gallon of RA cultured buttermilk, and then I really didn't have to pay anything or do anything special. So this right here, it's cold to the touch. It's got to warm up. This is going to warm up gently from the bottom. I'll stir it every once in a while, and then I'll be back. I'm going to sanitize this right here. We're going to ferment in the container it came in, and then after I sanitize this with bleach, then we'll go through the process of making Blaand. See you in a minute. Okay, so it is up to temp. Time for us to turn off the heat. Okay, so you can see right here, it is already separating out. It's doing beautifully, but I want it to have maximum time to work, so I'm going to let this sit overnight, covered with plastic wrap in the refrigerator. This will just ensure that I get the maximum amount of liquid I can out. So, because we're going to be fermenting the liquid, we're going to be using this yellowish whey. And so, once I'm done with that, I'll show you the next step. Okay, so the whey has been chilling overnight, allowed to settle. We're now going to pour the whey into our 5 layers of cheesecloth. Trying to keep as much of this solid stuff out as possible. We're going to have to do that. This is basically like ricotta. So I'm going to get a spoon and scoop the rest of this out. Okay, so I'm just going to, sorry for the screeching noise. Just scrape this out here. Get as much of these curds out of this container as possible. So I'm going to press this and make cheese. And the next thing, we'll gather these sides up. And now all we do is we make like a tourniquet, start twisting. And the whole reason for this is to get out as much of that whey as possible, because this is going to be our fermenting liquid and we need as much whey as we can get. And also, because I'm not a wasteful person, This will be our cheese. We almost have about 3 quarts of this. So I'll catch up with you in a minute as we do another. Okay, so now we got the whey separated from the cheese curd mostly. There's still going to be some particulates. It's okay. They'll settle out. It'll be fine. So from here, what we're going to do is we got a little over 3 quarts. I'm going to try to put as much honey as I can into this jug. I'm going to put a little bit of whey in there, not much. And then we're going to put the honey in, and then we'll shake her up and go through the rest of the process. Okay, so this is just the buttermilk fermenter. It's the container buttermilk came in, and then I'm going to pour in some of this. It's going everywhere. Just a little bit of honey. I just did a video day. This is March 8th. I did this one on March 3rd. That's the original gravity. And my recipe right here. But what I was talking about in the video I just did is that I absolutely hate doing this, but I think people like seeing it. Just seeing that how this works. It's not blown up like crazy because I've got the holes in it. Makes a perfect airlock. Not flying off, just doing its thing. But I think people like to see it, so here you go. Okay, so we're back. It is March 26th. Before I get started, I want to say that I made a bonehead error. Just because you're dealing with a non-sugar or non-fermentable sugar does not mean that you should not take a reading after you add something to your brew. I did not do that. I don't know what happened. Possibly because it did alter the viscosity and the volume. It kicked off a fermentation. So we did this addition of non-fermentable sugars on the 15th. It is the 26th. So it took about 11 days, something like that, to get this fermentation to stop. So you can add something to a brew and kick off a fermentation, even if it's not adding fermentable sugars. So always take your readings. Based off of the amount of erythritol that I put into this brew, more than likely it has changed the alcohol by volume by about, I would say, 3%. Because a point is, I don't think I've said this before, but when I say points, I am saying, like, when you give a reading of 1.010, and let's say it goes to 1.000, then that is actually what I consider to be 10 points difference. And every 10 points, you're looking at, depending upon which coefficient you use, you're looking at anywhere from 1.31% alcohol to, I've seen coefficients as crazy as 1.4 something. So, about 1.45% alcohol. Most people say anywhere between 1.33 and 1.35 in their coefficients. Again, it's a guesstimate. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to check and see what this thing has actually done. I'm going to take this balloon off. Chunk that. I've sanitized everything. Now, here's the tricky part. I do not want to aerate this brew in any way. I really don't want to take out this much fluid, but I have to because I gotta get a reading. But I don't want to stir up anything because this thing will stir up and cause oxidation. Now, a lot of people, they will say, well, there's not any oxidation because I've got a blanket here of CO2. That's not the case. So this thing right here, this turkey baster, is only dedicated to brewing. I don't use it for cooking in any manner other than doing this. If I stick this in and push this thing down, you can see right now I've already got pinched before I put it in here. I'm trying not to stir up this much because anytime you oxidize this, you can create fusel flavors, fusel smells. You can cause off coloring, off flavors, just a whole host of problems. And it happens quicker than most people think. So right now, like all that I'm doing in this colander is oxidizing it. If I pour it in there, I've just put oxidized brew in my bucket or in my jug. I do not want that. This is probably going to be way more than what I want to do. All that slurping and bubbling, that creates oxygen issues. Now we're going. Alright, now let's see where we're at. Alright, it is saying 1.030. I have 1.020 when I did my original reading, but I did not do my reading after that. So that's the reason why you always do that. I changed my gravity and I did not take the reading. So I don't know how much gravity. I now don't know how much alcohol I got. I'm not pouring this back into that container under no circumstances. But now this is way more than I wanted for a taster, but unfortunately there's no better system yet that I know of. But let's give it a taste. Just on smell. Yeah. Good sweetness. Can't really taste the nutmeg. Got a little bit of a bite. It's got a flavor that is unique. I'm having to think on what I'm wanting to do. I could put an oak stave in here. It's cloudy. It's super cloudy. I don't even see light coming through from the camera. So if it looks weird from your end, what I'm trying to do is that there's a light blinding me for my camera. That's the reason why I also have a problem reading the thing, because I'm blinded by this light hitting me. So I can't read the numbers that well. I've got real cloudiness that I don't think will go away. It might, but I doubt it. I had an idea for adding some spice to it that might help. But I really can't taste the nutmeg in this. And I added nutmeg. Nutmeg has done nothing. I have some oak wood. I actually went out this morning, cut down an oak tree, not a big oak tree, but cut down an oak tree, and sapling, which you need older oak, which I know that, but for this purposes. And then I heated it, basically baked it until it was a good roasted oak. I could put an oak stave in here and see what the oak does. I'm halfway tempted to try that. I don't know what to do yet. Let me think. Well, I've thought about it, and I think this needs oaking. So as I said, I cut down a sapling today. I toasted the sapling. And I think this is what it needs. I have capped this back off, or back on, with a new balloon, retied it. We've oaked it. I'm going to jot down on here some notes, and then we're going to let it sit probably for about 2 weeks and see what happens. I'm hoping that this will make some complexity changes here, because the nutmeg that I put in does not seem to have done anything of any benefit. So that's what we're going to do. This is going to be a very quick clip here. All I'm going to be doing is transferring the Viking Blaand into the bottles and bottling it. Alright, I've already poured the Viking Blaand into the bottles. You can see it's not real clear, but that is the problem with Blaand. It is a cloudy beverage. For the next step, we're going to be adding some Carbonation Drops. These are just basically pre-measured sugar drops. And one goes into each bottle, just like this. Oh, in case you're wanting to know, also the hydrometer is the same thing, 1.030. I don't really trust that because when I added the erythritol, it started a fermentation process again. So that's what it was after I'd done the oak. So we're going to cap these now. This is my capping device right here. I think I paid maybe 20 bucks for this bottler. It came with caps. All you do is just set the caps on it and then grab, there's the little part that the cap sits on. You'll place that on top and there's a little lever on each side. It's real easy. Okay, so my tester is right here. I got it marked for the Mead contest I'm doing. You cannot have them marked in any way, so this just lets me know. I always do a half turn on these and recap again just to make sure that they're seated well, because sometimes they don't like take pressure. Here is the Mead. Do a quick taste test. It has changed dramatically. You can taste a little bit of the nutmeg, not much. Mild hit of nutmeg. You can taste vanillins that came from the oak. You can see that it's darker in color. That came from the oak. It's sweet, but not too sweet. That's from the erythritol. No sour flavors. It's got a little bit of a tang, but not too much. Just the right amount. I think it being like it's supposed to be and being effervescent will actually help. So it needs that carbonation. And so hopefully we'll get that soon. I'll see you in the next clip.